a time-traveling engineer in Polynesia, 1200. What if you woke up one day, not in your cozy modern apartment, but on a windswept beach in ancient Polynesia, 800 years in the past, with nothing but your wits and a world that doesn't understand you? How would a 30-year-old American engineer survive in a land where the ocean is both life and death, and every mistake could mean disaster? In this thrilling tale, you'll discover how one woman's modern knowledge sparks a revolution, faces impossible odds, and uncovers a mystery that could change everything. Stick around to unravel the secrets of time, survival, and a daring adventure that will leave you questioning what's possible. The sun blazed over the endless turquoise expanse of the Pacific, its rays glinting off waves that whispered secrets of a world long forgotten. Sophia Bennett, a 30-year-old mechanical engineer from Seattle, blinked against the blinding light, her head pounding as if she'd been hit by a truck. One moment, she'd been tinkering with a prototype in her lab, the hum of machinery and the glow of her laptop filling the room. The next, a strange, shimmering ripple in the air had swallowed her whole, spitting her out onto this alien shore. Her sneakers sank into warm sand, and the salty tang of the sea stung her nose. She was no longer in 2025. This was Polynesia, 1200 AD, a land of vibrant jungles, towering volcanoes, and a people whose lives revolved around the capricious ocean. Sophia's heart raced as she took in her surroundings. Palm trees swayed lazily in the breeze, the fronds casting dappled shadows on the ground. In the distance, a cluster of thatched huts hugged the shoreline, their wooden frames adorned with intricate carvings of fish and stars. Dark-skinned villagers, clad in woven skirts and shell necklaces, moved with purpose, some mending nets, others hauling baskets of glistening fish. But their faces, etched with worry, told a deeper story. Sophia's engineering mind kicked into gear, analyzing the scene like a blueprint. The canoes lined along the beach were narrow, single-hulled, and precarious, tipping dangerously with every wave. No wonder the villagers' eyes darted nervously to the horizon. The ocean, their lifeblood for fishing and exploration, was also their greatest threat. She adjusted her glasses, smudged with salt spray, and ran a hand through her tangled auburn hair. Her navy blazer and jeans were absurdly out of place, drawing curious glances from a group of children nearby. One bold girl, no older than 10, with a crown of hibiscus flowers, pointed at Sophia's smartwatch and giggled. Sophia forced a smile, but her mind was reeling. How did I get here? The question gnawed at her, but survival came first. She wasn't just a stranger in a strange land. She was a woman from the future, armed with knowledge that could change everything, or get her killed. As she stumbled toward the village, her sneakers leaving odd prints in the sand, Sophia noticed the villagers' canoes more closely. They were beautifully crafted, but flawed, unstable, and prone to capsizing in the open sea. She'd read about ancient Polynesian navigation, how these people were masters of the stars, crossing vast oceans to find new lands. But their boats? They were a disaster waiting to happen. Her engineer's brain lit up with ideas. Catamarans. The word flashed in her mind. Twin-hulled boats, stable and swift, could transform their lives, making fishing safer, exploration bolder, and trade more reliable. She could build one. She had to build one. But the villagers weren't exactly rolling out the welcome mat. A tall man with a feathered headdress and a stern gaze approached, his hand resting on a carved wooden staff. This was Chief Kaimana, the leader of this small coastal tribe, his authority as undeniable as the tides. Behind him, a wiry figure draped in dark cloaks muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing at Sophia. The village shaman, Malo, radiated suspicion, his fingers clutching a pendant carved with swirling symbols. The air crackled with tension. Sophia's arrival was no accident, she realized. Something, or someone, had brought her here, and the answers lay in this village, hidden in the shadows of their rituals and the whispers of the sea. Sophia squared her shoulders, her Seattle grit kicking in. "I'm Sophia," she said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "I can help you. Your boats, they're sinking, aren't they? I know how to make them better." The villagers exchanged glances, some curious, others skeptical. Chief Kaimana's eyes bore into hers, weighing her words. Malo's lips curled into a sneer, his voice low and venomous. "Outsider," he hissed. "The ocean gods do not speak through you." Sophia's pulse quickened. She was a fish out of water, literally and figuratively. But she wasn't about to back down. She'd faced skeptical clients and impossible deadlines in boardrooms. This was just a different kind of challenge. The ocean was their lifeline, and she could make it their highway. "Ex-lo nuak," she muttered to herself, chuckling at the thought of calling the vast Pacific a water highway. The phrase earned her a few puzzled looks, but it sparked a fire in her. She'd show them. She'd build a boat that could conquer the waves, and maybe, just maybe, find a way back to her own time. But the stakes were higher than she knew. Far out at sea, a group of the tribe's best navigators had vanished, their canoes swallowed by a storm. The village was on edge, their faith in the gods shaken. Sophia's arrival, to some, was a sign of hope, to others, a dangerous omen. As she stood on that beach, the weight of her situation settled in. She wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting to prove herself in a world that didn't trust her, in a time that wasn't hers. And somewhere, in the whispers of the wind and the shadows of the jungle, a greater mystery waited. What had pulled her through time? And could she ever go back? Sophia stood at the edge of the village, the salty Pacific breeze tugging at her jeans as she surveyed the chaotic beauty of the Polynesian shoreline. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, but her mind was a storm of calculations and possibilities. Her idea, a catamaran, a twin-hulled marvel of stability and speed, could revolutionize the way these villagers fished, traded, and explored. But convincing a tribe steeped in tradition, led by a wary chief and shadowed by a hostile shaman, was no small feat. She was a stranger from a future they couldn't fathom, and every step she took felt like walking a tightrope over a churning sea. The villagers' whispers followed her like ghosts, some calling her a gift from the gods, others a harbinger of doom. And yet, Sophia's Seattle-born tenacity burned brighter than their doubts. She'd faced impossible deadlines and skeptical bosses before. This was just a different kind of boardroom, one where failure could mean exile, or worse. Her first task was to win over the villagers. She started small, crouching beside a group of fishermen mending nets near the beach. Their hands moved deftly, weaving fibers with practiced ease, but their faces were lined with worry. Sophia learned their names: Lonnie, a wiry woman with a quick laugh; Koa, a broad-shouldered man whose eyes never left the horizon; and young Tua, barely 16, who dreamed of sailing beyond the reef. "Your boats," Sophia began, her voice steady but warm. "They're beautiful, but they tip too easily. I can show you a design that rides the waves like a bird." She sketched a catamaran in the sand, two sleek hulls connected by a sturdy platform, stable even in rough seas. The fishermen leaned in, intrigued, but their glances darted nervously toward the chief's hut. Koa spoke first, his voice low. "The ocean gods decide our fate, outsider. Why should we trust you?" Sophia grinned, undeterred. "Because I've seen oceans tamed. Back in my home, we call the sea a water highway. Imagine boats that don't just survive the waves, but dance across them." The phrase water highway sparked laughter, especially from Tua, who repeated it with a giggle. Sophia seized the moment, her enthusiasm infectious. She described how the catamaran's twin hulls would balance their weight, how its wide platform could carry more fish, more supplies, more dreams. Lonnie's eyes sparkled with cautious hope. "If you're right," she said, "we could fish beyond the lagoon. My brother, he was lost to a storm last season." The words hung heavy, and Sophia felt the weight of their trust settling on her shoulders. She wasn't just building a boat, she was building a lifeline. But not everyone was charmed. Malo, the shaman, watched from the shadows of a banyan tree, his dark cloak blending with the dusk. His pendant, a carved shell etched with spirals, glinted as he muttered prayers to the ocean gods. To him, Sophia was a disruption, a threat to the sacred balance he claimed to protect. That evening, as the village gathered around a fire to share a meal of roasted fish and taro, Malo struck. He rose, his voice like thunder rolling over the waves. "This woman speaks of taming the sea," he bellowed, pointing a bony finger at Sophia. She mocks the gods who guard us. Her strange clothes, her strange words, they bring danger. The villagers murmured, fear flickering in their eyes. Chief Kaimana, seated on a woven mat, remained silent, his gaze unreadable. Sophia's heart pounded, but she stood tall. I respect your gods, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. But I believe they sent me here to help. Let me prove it. The chief's eyes narrowed, weighing her words. Then, in a voice as deep as the ocean itself, he spoke. Prove it then. Build this water highway boat. Show us it can withstand the sea's wrath. The crowd gasped, but Malo's sneer widened. And if she fails, he hissed, she will face the god's judgment, alone on the outer isles. Sophia's stomach twisted. The outer isles were barren rocks, lashed by storms and abandoned by all but the gulls. Failure meant exile, maybe death. But she nodded, her jaw set. Give me 10 days, she said, and I'll build you a boat that will change everything. The next morning, Sophia threw herself into the task, her engineer's mind firing on all cylinders. She enlisted Tua and Lani, who rallied a small crew of curious villagers. The jungle became her workshop, its towering trees offering timber for the hulls. She taught them to lash logs with coconut fiber, her hands guiding theirs as she explained balance and buoyancy in terms they could grasp. Think of it like 2 feet instead of 1, she said, sketching diagrams in the dirt. It keeps you steady, no matter how hard the wind pushes. Tua's eyes lit up, and even Koa, the skeptic, began to nod as he saw the hulls take shape. But resources were scarce. The village had only so many strong logs, and the tools, stone adzes and shell blades, were maddeningly slow compared to her Seattle workshop's power tools. Sophia improvised, using her smartwatch's flashlight to work late into the night, its glow earning gasps from the villagers who called it starlight in her hand. As the catamaran's frame rose on the beach, so did the tension. Malo's influence grew, his whispered warnings turning more villagers against Sophia. One night, a pile of her carefully cut timber vanished, replaced by a scattering of broken shells, a clear message from the shaman's followers. Sophia's frustration boiled over, but she refused to let it break her. She rallied her team, working double time to replace the lost wood. Tua, ever loyal, confided in her under the starlit sky. Malo says you're a spirit from the deep, sent to anger the gods. But I think you're here to save us. His words fueled her resolve, but time was slipping away. The sea grew restless, its waves crashing harder each day, as if testing her. Then came the bombshell. On the 7th day, a breathless scout stumbled into the village, his face pale. The tribe's lost navigators, 10 men, including Lani's husband, were alive, stranded on a distant atoll after their canoes shattered in a storm. But another tempest was brewing, one that could wipe them out for good. Chief Kaimana summoned Sophia to his hut, his expression grim. Your time is cut short, he said. You have 5 days to finish this boat and sail to save our men. If you succeed, you will be one of us. If you fail, the outer isles await. Sophia's heart sank. 5 days. The catamaran was barely half built, and the jungle was running out of suitable timber. Worse, Malo's followers were sabotaging her work, and the looming storm threatened to undo everything. The stakes were dizzying. Sophia's mind raced, piecing together a plan. She'd need to streamline the design, cutting corners, without sacrificing stability. She'd need to rally every ally she had, from Tua's youthful energy to Koa's brute strength. And she'd need to outsmart Malo, whose dark rituals seemed to grow louder each night, as if calling the storm itself. The village buzzed with anticipation, some rooting for her, others waiting for her to fall. Sophia felt the weight of 1,000 years pressing down on her. Her knowledge, her courage, her very existence in this time hung in the balance. But as she looked at the half-finished catamaran, its twin hulls gleaming under the moon, she felt a spark of hope. She wasn't just building a boat. She was building a bridge between past and future, between doubt and belief. The air crackled with tension as the 5th dawn broke over the Polynesian village, the sky bruised with ominous clouds that churned like a warning from the gods. Sophia Bennett, the 30-year-old Seattle engineer stranded in 1200 AD, stood before her half-finished catamaran, its twin hulls lashed together, but still raw, untested, and vulnerable. The Pacific roared beyond the reef, its waves clawing at the shore as if daring her to challenge its might. Chief Kaimana's ultimatum echoed in her mind. 5 days to finish the boat and rescue the tribe's stranded navigators, or face exile to the desolate outer isles. With only hours left, the weight of her task felt like an anchor dragging her down. But Sophia's resolve burned hotter than the tropical sun. She wasn't just fighting for her survival, but for the lives of 10 men, including Lonnie's husband, and for a village teetering on the edge of hope and despair. The Catamaran, her water highway dream, was a patchwork of ingenuity and desperation. The twin hulls, carved from the jungle's dwindling supply of koa wood, stood sturdy but incomplete, lashed with coconut fiber that Sophia had tested and retested for strength. The platform connecting them was only half built, and the sail, a patchwork of woven palm fronds, was a gamble against the storm's fury. Her team, a loyal but exhausted crew of villagers led by Tua and Lonnie, worked alongside her, their hands blistered from stone adzes and their eyes heavy with doubt. Koa, the gruff fisherman, had finally come around, his strength vital as he hauled logs and tied knots with the precision of a man born to the sea. But time was a relentless enemy, and the storm was no longer a threat on the horizon. It was here, its winds howling like a chorus of angry spirits. Sophia's smartwatch, now flickering with a dying battery, cast a faint glow as she worked through the night, her starlight in hand, earning awed whispers from the villagers. She'd streamlined the catamaran's design, sacrificing elegance for speed, narrower hulls for less drag, a lighter platform to save on wood. But the sabotage from Malo, the shaman who saw her as a curse, had taken its toll. Another bundle of ropes had vanished the previous night, replaced with a cryptic scattering of black shells arranged in a spiral, a symbol of the ocean god's wrath, or so Malo claimed. The village was fracturing, with half the tribe chanting prayers at Malo's altar and the other half watching Sophia with a mix of hope and fear. She could feel their eyes on her, weighing every move, every decision. As the first raindrops fell, heavy and cold, Sophia gathered her crew on the beach. "We're out of time," she said, her voice cutting through the wind. "The navigators are out there, on that atoll, and this storm will kill them if we don't move now." Lonnie's eyes glistened, her hands trembling as she thought of her husband, Kai, among the stranded. Tua, barely containing his excitement, nodded fiercely. "We trust you, Sophia. Let's finish this." Koa grunted, his skepticism softened by necessity. "If this boat fails, we all drown. But I'd rather die trying than wait for the gods to decide." Sophia's heart swelled. She wasn't alone anymore. But the clock was ticking, and the storm's shadow loomed larger with every passing minute. The final push was chaos. The village became a whirlwind of activity as Sophia directed her team, like a conductor in a storm. Tua scrambled to weave the last of the sail, his nimble fingers flying over the palm fronds. Lonnie and Koa lashed the platform's final beams, their muscles straining against the weight. Sophia, her jeans soaked and her glasses fogged with rain, calculated angles and stress points in her head, shouting instructions over the wind. "Tighter on the starboard hull. We need balance," she yelled, her voice hoarse but commanding. The villagers, even those who'd sided with Malo, began to gather, drawn by the sheer audacity of her work. The catamaran, rough but resilient, was taking shape, a vessel unlike anything they'd ever seen, a bridge between their world and hers. But Malo wasn't done. As the storm's first gusts battered the shore, he emerged from the jungle, his cloak billowing like a dark sail. Behind him, a group of his followers carried torches, their flames spitting defiantly against the rain. "This is blasphemy," Malo roared, his voice rising above the thunder. "This outsider defies the ocean gods. Her boat will bring their wrath upon us all." He pointed to the sky, where lightning cracked like a whip, and the crowd gasped, some dropping to their knees. Sophia's pulse raced, but she stepped forward, her boots sinking into the wet sand. "Your gods haven't saved those men out there," she shouted, her Seattle grit cutting through the fear. "This boat will. Help me, or get out of my way." The crowd wavered, torn between fear and hope. Chief Kaimana appeared, his feathered headdress swaying in the wind, his presence silencing the chaos. "Enough," he said, his voice a low rumble. "The sea will judge her. Launch the boat at dawn. If it fails, she faces the Isles. If it succeeds," he paused, his eyes locking onto Sophia's, "she will have earned her place." Malo's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing, retreating into the shadows with a glare that promised trouble. Sophia knew he wasn't finished. She'd caught him near her supplies too many times, his hands too quick, his eyes too cunning. But there was no time to confront him now. The catamaran had to be ready. The final hours were a blur of desperation and brilliance. Sophia and her crew worked through sheets of rain, their clothes clinging to their skin, their breaths ragged. The sail was hoisted, flapping wildly until Koa secured it with a sailor's knot. The hulls were sealed with a mix of tree resin and coconut oil, a trick Sophia had improvised when pitch ran low. As dawn broke, gray and furious, the catamaran stood complete, a sleek, double-hulled beast that looked both alien and majestic against the roiling sea. The village gathered, their faces a mix of awe and dread, as Sophia's team dragged the boat to the water's edge. The waves crashed higher, foam spraying like a warning, but Sophia felt a surge of adrenaline. This was her moment, her chance to prove that 800 years of engineering could conquer the Pacific's wrath. The launch was a gamble. Sophia, Koa, Lani, and Tua climbed aboard, their weight balanced carefully between the hulls. The catamaran rocked but held steady, its twin hulls slicing through the waves with a grace that silenced the crowd. Sophia gripped the steering oar, her heart pounding as she navigated past the reef, the village shrinking behind them. The storm was upon them now, the wind screaming, the rain blinding. Lightning illuminated the horizon, revealing the distant atoll where the navigators were stranded. "Hold on," Sophia shouted, her voice barely audible over the tempest. The catamaran surged forward, its stability defying the chaos, but a sickening crack rang out. A rope on the port hull had snapped, weakened by sabotage. Malo's work, no doubt. Panic gripped the crew, but Sophia's mind raced. "Tua, grab the spare fiber," she yelled, pointing to a bundle stashed beneath the platform. Tua scrambled, his small frame battered by the wind, as Lani and Koa fought to keep the sail steady. Sophia tied the new rope herself, her hand slipping on the wet fiber, her muscles screaming. The catamaran lurched, but the repair held. The atoll loomed closer, its rocky outline barely visible through the storm. There, clinging to a jagged outcrop, were the navigators, 10 men, battered but alive, waving desperately. Lani sobbed with relief, spotting Kai among them. But the sea wasn't done with them. A massive wave reared up, a wall of water that threatened to swallow the catamaran whole. Sophia's heart stopped, but her instincts kicked in. "Lean starboard," she screamed, throwing her weight against the oar. The crew followed, their trust in her absolute. The catamaran tilted, its twin hulls skimming the wave's crest, defying gravity in a heart-stopping moment of triumph. The wave crashed behind them, and the boat surged forward, reaching the atoll's shallow waters. The navigator scrambled aboard, Kai embracing Lani as tears mixed with rain. The village, watching from the distant shore, erupted in cheers that carried over the wind. Sophia had done it. She'd beaten the storm, Malo's sabotage, and the weight of history itself. But as the catamaran turned back toward the village, a strange shimmer caught Sophia's eye, a ripple in the air, like the one that had brought her here, hovering over the atoll's edge. Malo's pendant, now clutched in his hand as he watched from the shore, seemed to pulse with the same eerie light. The shaman knew something, and Sophia's gut told her it was tied to her journey through time. The rescue was a victory, but the storm had only revealed a deeper mystery, one that could either send her home or trap her forever. The catamaran sliced through the fading storm, its twin hulls steady as it carried Sophia, her crew, and the rescued navigators back to the Polynesian village. The Pacific, though still restless, seemed to bow to their victory, its waves gentler now, as if acknowledging the audacity of the water highway boat. Sophia Bennett, the 30-year-old Seattle engineer stranded in 1200 AD, stood at the helm, her soaked jeans clinging to her legs, her glasses speckled with salt water, and her heart pounding with a mix of triumph and unease. The village shore came into view, a crescent of golden sand framed by swaying palms, where the entire tribe waited, their faces alight with awe. The cheers that had echoed across the water grew louder, a chorus of hope that drowned out the lingering thunder. Sophia had done the impossible. She'd built a boat that conquered the storm, saved 10 lives, including Lonnie's husband, Kai, and proven her worth to a people who doubted her. But the shimmering ripple she'd seen on the atoll, pulsing like the one that had torn her from 2025, lingered in her mind. And Malo, the shaman, stood on the shore, his pendant glowing faintly, his eyes locked on her with a knowing intensity that sent a chill down her spine. As the catamaran glided into the shallows, the villagers rushed forward, splashing through the surf to greet the returning heroes. Lonnie and Kai clung to each other, their reunion a beacon of joy amidst the crowd. Tua, the young dreamer, leaped from the boat, his grin wide enough to rival the sun breaking through the clouds. Even Koa, the gruff fisherman who'd once called Sophia an outsider, clapped her shoulder with a nod of respect. "You tamed the sea," he said, his voice rough but warm. "Maybe you're not so strange after all." Sophia managed a tired smile, her muscles aching from the battle against the storm, but her engineer's mind was already racing ahead. The rescue was a victory, but the mystery of her arrival in this time, and that eerie shimmer, demanded answers. She wasn't just a hero. She was a puzzle piece in a game she didn't yet understand. Chief Kaimana stepped forward, his feathered headdress catching the light as the crowd parted. His presence was a force, like the tide itself, commanding silence. "Sophia of the Starlight Hand," he said, his deep voice carrying over the waves. "You have proven your heart and your skill. The ocean has judged you, and it has spoken. You are one of us." The villagers erupted in cheers, some chanting her name, others raising woven baskets of fish and fruit in celebration. Sophia's chest swelled with pride, but her eyes darted to Malo, who stood apart, his cloak billowing in the breeze, his pendant pulsing with that unnatural light. He hadn't joined the celebration, and his silence was louder than the crowd's roar. She knew he wasn't finished with her, not by a long shot. That night, the village transformed into a festival of fire and song. Torches blazed along the beach, casting flickering shadows as drums pounded a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of the sea. The villagers danced, their bodies swaying like the waves, while children wove through the crowd, crowned with hibiscus flowers. Sophia sat among them, her Seattle blazer replaced with a woven skirt gifted by Lonnie, though she kept her glasses and smartwatch, now dead but still a talisman of her lost world. Tua, ever her shadow, pressed a coconut shell of fermented fruit juice into her hand, his eyes sparkling. "You're a legend now," he said. "They're calling you the Wave Tamer." "What's next, Sophia? Will you build more boats? Teach us your starlight magic." She laughed, but her thoughts were elsewhere, drawn to the jungle's edge where Malo had vanished after the ceremony. As the firelight danced, Lonnie pulled Sophia aside, her face soft but serious. "Kai told me something," she whispered, glancing nervously at the crowd. "When they were stranded, they saw something. A light, like the one in your starlight hand, but bigger, floating over the water. They thought it was a god, but Kai said it felt wrong." Sophia's pulse quickened, the shimmer on the atoll, the glow of Malo's pendant. They were connected, and the shaman knew more than he let on. She excused herself, slipping away from the feast, her boots crunching on the sand as she headed toward Malo's hut, hidden deep in the jungle. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of moss and secrets, as she approached the thatched structure, its entrance draped with vines. Inside, Malo sat cross-legged before a small altar, his pendant glowing brighter now, casting eerie patterns on the walls. He didn't look surprised to see her. "You seek answers, Wave Tamer," he said, his voice low and serpentine. "But some truths are not yours to know." Sophia's Seattle grit flared. "I didn't come here by accident, did I?" she demanded, stepping closer. "That light, your pendant, it's tied to whatever brought me here. Tell me what you know." Malo's eyes narrowed, but a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossed his face. He rose, clutching the pendant, and gestured to the altar, where a stone tablet lay, etched with spirals and symbols that mirrored the ones on his pendant. "The gods opened a gate," he said, "a door through time. It brought you here, but it is not yours to control. Seek it and you risk everything." Sophia's heart raced. A gate through time. The shimmer was no illusion. It was her way home, or at least a clue to why she'd been torn from 2025. But Malo's warning carried weight. What did he mean by everything? Her life? The village's future? Before she could press him further, a shout rang out from the beach. A scout, breathless, reporting a new threat. A rival tribe from a neighboring island, emboldened by the storm's chaos, was preparing to raid the village, their war canoes spotted on the horizon. The celebration turned to panic, and Chief Kaimana summoned Sophia. "Your boat saved our men," he said. "Now we need more. Can you arm us to defend our home?" The weight of her new role settled on her shoulders. She was no longer just an engineer, but a leader in a world on the brink of war. As the village scrambled to prepare, Sophia's mind churned. The Catamaran was a start, but they'd need stronger defenses, perhaps even weapons inspired by her modern knowledge. Yet the shimmer, the time gate, called to her, a siren song of answers and a possible way back to Seattle. She stood at the jungle's edge, the glow of Malo's hut fading behind her, the roar of the sea ahead. The tablet's symbols burned in her memory, each spiral a question, each line a challenge. Should she stay, build more boats, and fight for this village that had claimed her as their own? Or should she chase the gate, risking everything for a chance to return to her time? Malo's words echoed, "Seek it, and you risk everything." Sophia's journey has reached a heart-pounding crossroads, but the story is far from over. Will she stay to defend the village she's come to love, forging a new destiny as the wave tamer? Or will she chase the mysterious time gate, unraveling the secrets of her journey through time? What does Malo know? And what is he hiding behind that glowing pendant? The stakes are higher than ever, with war on the horizon and a mystery that spans centuries. Don't miss the next chapter of this electrifying saga. Subscribe and stay tuned to our channel to discover what lies beyond the gate and how Sophia's choices will shape a world caught between past and future. The adventure is just beginning, and you won't want to miss a single wave.